Here we will hear the first reaction from Putin himself. Finally, he climbed out of the bunker to respond to ultimatums or, as propagandists say, threats from the Americans. Putin replied that if Kyiv is not ready for negotiations, then Moscow will wait. That is, Kyiv believes that this is not the time for negotiations. And this is despite the fact that Kyiv said back in March that it was ready for all negotiations before the ceasefire. On March 11 we said this at a meeting in Saudi Arabia. And the last meeting in Turkey, already in Istanbul, was held, and it discussed the meeting of leaders, which the Ukrainian side insists on, that Putin, Zelensky, Trump, and Erdogan meet. But, you see, the Russian terrorist says that it is Kyiv that does not want negotiations. We are counting on the continuation of negotiations, the Russian dictator said. In addition, he said that he was ready to end the war. Sensation. But on the terms that were in June 2024. Let me remind you that either under the condition or an ultimatum from the Kremlin, Putin demands the surrender of Ukraine. Of course, he reminded them again. He says that the Ukrainian military must completely withdraw its troops from the territory of the so-called DPR, LPR, Kherson, and Zaporizhzhia regions. But the territory of the so-called DPR, LPR, and even those territories of Luhansk and Donetsk regions that are under the control of Ukraine. That is, he demands that we completely withdraw the defense forces from Ukrainian territories, from the temporarily occupied territories and those that are still under our control. He requires, again, Ukraine's commitment not to join NATO. He wants Ukraine to be a neutral, non-aligned, nuclear-free status of Ukraine from us. You see, the nuclear-free status of Ukraine has already been added here. Similarly, Putin demands that all Western leaders and countries that have imposed sanctions against the Kremlin lift them. What can I say? Putin responded to Trump, as promised, with a very loud statement. He said that he was not ready to actually end the war, because he only demanded the surrender of Ukraine. It is interesting now to see the position of the American president. How will he react to this? Although the White House allegedly understands that Russia is not ready to make any negotiations, but only increases its pressure and escalation, shelling the territory of Ukraine every day. Putin has actually directly spat in Trump's face now and sent him with peace initiatives far away. So now, it seems to me, there should be a move by the American president, and not just this verbal move, but real actions that will be not just demonstrative, but really effective. These so-called actions, I apologize for the tautology, Trump may have an action, this is that he just came out and said that he would impose sanctions. But will he impose them?
У Трампа, можливо, дія – це те, що він просто вийшов і сказав, що запровадить санкції, але чи запровадить він їх?
The same with weapons. Will he give them to Ukraine? Not yet known. Of course, they are planning, everyone promises us, but so far we have not seen this in Ukraine. Therefore, in my opinion, now Trump obviously has to take a step, and exactly one that will force Putin to cease fire. By the way, Marco Rubio, the US Secretary of State, said the day before that the American president has several such ways. He has several important ways of influencing and putting pressure on Russia. In particular, this is sanctions pressure, the introduction of tariffs against those countries that buy Russian energy resources. In the same way, Trump can hit the Russian banking system when he imposes new sanctions against banks, but he can also lower the price ceiling for oil. This will also hit Putin. But most importantly, it is the same in this military step. Will Donald Trump dare to transfer a lot of weapons to Ukraine? At least even the weapons that they have already promised. By the way, there are statements again. Again, everything resembles Putin's conditions. I have already read them to you. But here is the main thing. The Russian dictator voiced that he is not ready for negotiations, because he only wants the surrender of Ukraine. Only then he is ready to end the war. Of course, how else will it be possible to end this war when he wants to seize the entire territory of Ukraine, or put a Russian-controlled government here? Therefore, Donald Trump now has leverage, and as we have already talked about these sanctions, they can even act on the one hand, because Russia needs to be forced into a ceasefire. And its economy is very weak now, and if you squeeze again, twist it, and if not only the United States introduces these tariffs, but also other European countries, then it can really have an impact. Moreover, now the Russian terrorist says that they are not afraid of those sanctions. Everyone has already scared them and they are ready for anything, but in fact they are not. They are in trouble with the economy, and this is already confirmed even by the official mouthpieces from the Central Bank of Russia, the Minister of Economy, who says that the economy is entering a recession, so it can really work now. Trump can use his influence in foreign policy in the same way, and he, by the way, has already begun to do this. He introduced the first tariffs against India the day before. From today they came into force. More precisely, this order came into force today, but these tariffs will come into force somewhere from August the 7th, 25% against India, one of the largest buyers of Russian oil, but then, perhaps, there will be more China and Brazil, and what Putin will do, I want to ask. But Russian terrorists are very brave. They hope that nothing will happen and that Trump only does what he says, but in fact there will be no further action, so they began to appeal to the American president and respond to his ultimatums. I suggest listening to Kartapolov. This is a deputy of the State Duma of Russia. And you understand that deputies do not just make such statements.
We have studied Trump. We understand that a little pathos, a little stand up for the domestic American audience, a little messiah for everyone else. I was disappointed in Russia. Listen, we didn't fascinate him. Who is he for us? A candidate for a bride or something to charm him? These are his problems. We don't bet on Trump in the same way that we didn't bet on Biden, not on those who came before Biden. We always bet on ourselves, on our soldier, on a Russian bayonet. And with this bet we have always overcome everything, and we are not going to be extras in the Trump show, and we will not. So we know how to respond to any ultimata, with obscene expressions. Well, Trump and Starmer will get nothing again.
Here are some interesting statements they have there. They say that we respond to all ultimates with obscenities. Who are the Russians? They are Gopota, who is in power. This is how they act, and this is how they communicate with the leaders of the powerful states of the world.